Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to our weekly Mandalorian reviews. Today, we are going to be giving our spoiler-filled discussion on Chapter 14, The Tragedy. And as you can see, we are joined with someone else tonight. We are joined with Todd from WSTR. Just checking that spelled correctly. Yes, it is. WSTR. We're very grateful to have you on the show, man. And this is another great episode. I mean, we're getting spoiled with The Mandalorian at the moment. I don't think any of us expected the events of this episode to transpire in this episode today. And we've got a lot to talk about. We are on a bit of a time limit, but we are going to give our in-depth discussion on everything relating to this episode. So, of course, as usual, if you haven't seen the episode yet, please go and watch it. Don't even look at the thumbnail for this thing. Just go watch the episode, come back to us afterwards, because this is going to be a good show today.
Absolutely. And the best way as usual to find out when we're going live, when we've got our videos, is to obviously find us on our social media. So Facebook, Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy. And of course, the good things that help us to like, comment, share, subscribe. We had a lot of new people checking in last week for chapter. I keep getting the numbers mixed up now. 13. There's so many of them. We're in the teens now. We're in the teen chapters. So yeah, obviously that was the big Ahsoka reveal this week. Was to me, I could be something even bigger we didn't see coming. But before we delve into it, I'm going to hand over to Todd, who's joining us as well, guys. Not just joining us. He's joining us from the States. You know, we had Australians last week.
I'm across the pond the other way. Yes.
Absolutely.
Pleasure to be on the show, guys. I'm always willing to help out, talk a little Star Wars, especially talk a little Mandalorian. We are just getting we're getting some tasty treats these last couple of weeks.
Definitely. Right. So we don't really know how to do this. We've not planned it fully. As usual, guys, we take you through the episode. Let's be honest, this was essentially 3 scenes today. It was one of the shortest episodes, which I actually, when the news came out, I was like, oh, it's going to be 31 minutes this week. We all kind of probably together thought, okay, it's going to be a filler episode. They're going to have to get to the Jedi Temple planet, and there's probably going to be a slight adventure on the way. I watched this on time today. Off the record, I watched this at bang on 8 o'clock when I started work, and Chris gets a voice note from me about 5 minutes in, and it's like, this is not filler. I repeat, this is not filler. that was my warning. And
I had it ready on Disney Plus, and I was waiting for your phone message to come through. I was like, okay, fantastic. This is going to be a good episode, and I sit back and enjoy it.
I'm not going to hit play until George tells me so.
Exactly. Yeah. George always beats me to it every week, but yeah, I mean, this was a hell of an episode. Basically 2 locations. Really, very, very sort of small scale episode, yet so much happens in it. This is just series changing stuff that happens in this episode.
Right. I mean, you don't have to go to multiple locations or multiple planets or create another planets. I mean, you don't have to do that, right? To ingest, good storytelling, and you definitely do it here. I mean, it is very small scale. I was also like, ooh, this is a shorter episode, and there's some complaints with season 1, them being short, and then we got a little bit longer episodes, obviously, in season 2, and now you're like, oh, right before the end, we got this short one, but man, this is action packed. And I was definitely thinking, my first impressions is I was definitely thinking more Moff Gideon, because he put the tracer on there, and so I'm like, he's got to follow the Mando somewhere. It's we got to see that happen. And I was really thinking that Tython would be the last shot, last scene in the conclusion of season 2, but we got it right away. I was like, oh, we're going here already? I'm like, okay.
Yeah, this is kind of where they've been spoiling us really with the pace, and I know this is something we're going to talk about later, but even I was surprised that we got to Tython straight away. Because we're so used to, I mean, I will hold my hands up and say that the first few episodes in terms of its structure was a bit I won't say annoying, but it was frustrating storytelling. It was kind of how season 1 was. It's like, let's just get on with the plot. Let's get moving. Like, we don't need this pit stop with spiders and a frog lady. Like, let's just get to where we need to get to. Let's get to Ahsoka.
Right.
I was kind of worried at the beginning, thinking that it was going to be a bunch of those filler episodes. But so far, this has proved me wrong. And I mean, we're moving into the final 2 episodes of this season, and I don't see it stalling anytime soon. I think it's just going to keep up this pace all the way through to the end, which is what I've wanted from this show for so long. So I'm just grateful to this episode that it's easing my consciousness a little bit into the latter part of the series.
Yeah. You kind of, with this, it's very video game, objective quest, and it gets a little stale, but there's enough there, I think, especially in season 2, they're putting in some things like, hey, did you remember this from season 1? And again, the little previews kind of give a little insight to that. And they brought up I forget again the robot's name from the Prison Break, and you're like, why are they showing that? And then you're like, oh, they're using that for the frog lady to talk, and you're like, okay. And then this one, I was like, oh, they're showing that, and there was a connection right away. I was like, ooh, that's great. So I thought those are pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, we're getting into a very fast pace now, and it's not more objective quest. Now things are moving at a very rapid pace. And this one, like I said, even though it's short, it delivers.
Definitely. And I think that's a really good thing, because I'm not going to criticize this at all, because it's what we want. I kind of said to Chris, I was like, I'm so used to the Mandalorian not even having filler, but having that, like, patience is probably the politer term to get to the next planet. And I was expecting, like, we're on the way to Typhus, something's going to happen. And I was completely blown away that, they showed it. I was like, is that it? Like, are we here? Is it done? And then they're like, oh no, we can't park up here. We'll have to find our own way. And I was like, oh, we're going to get an episode like climbing the mountain for filler. But no, it was the opposite, We just
kept in, fly in, and next thing you're like, oh, they're getting right to the top. All right,
And Dave from The Life of Brian says it really did look like the location, because this is actually a location from Legends. Now, I don't know much about Legends. This is just what I've heard from people, that this was in the old canon. So, it's good that they've paid homage to that. And if they've tried to recreate it as much as possible from that old EU, then that's really cool as well. We did have a little joke about this before we hit record, though, that we found out that this was actually shot on location for the most part. Obviously, probably not from the wide shots, but like actually the stuff in the episode was on location. And we were saying how fake it looks, how it looks like a soundstage or something. Like it's insane.
Yeah, it's like this. The real life is not good enough anymore. We need we need everything through the volume. Like I need everything from the volume, and But yeah, I thought it was cool because again, you get more depth, and the camera catches that. Obviously, when you got a hilly location with rocks and all that kind of stuff, so it really did add to the atmosphere. Which is clearly why you shoot on location to begin with. Tython is an Old Republic reference. It's an old Jedi temple. So I really enjoyed. I mean, it's very simple. I don't have any reference from Old Republic other than it was name dropped. I don't know if they actually showed it in the game. But it's a very simple thing. I was like, oh, it's not some elaborate planet or a temple. It's just it's right there on the mountain. Okay, cool.
It's Stonehenge, essentially. It's
Stonehenge. Right. Yeah.
And I think that's why them going to location as well, because it's not been officially confirmed via Lucasfilm, but everyone's talking about it today, so something must have come out. But they're saying it's a valley in California. We know that's probably right next to the set. It could even be like 10 minutes away, but it's what you mentioned. The volume is, to me, going to be one of the best things for the film industry long term now, especially if they're going to slash budgets with some other news like COVID and that.
I mean, we already know that like Thor is using the volume, which we know these other films are starting to use the technology, and that's straight up Lucasfilm. It's like use the technology for our show and then benefit other movies with it. And with the restrictions with COVID and everything of not traveling, you could do a lot with little. And I think that's the beauty of the volume. But again, with this scene, you have a lot more depth, and I think that's great that they shoot on location. So.
And I think that's what was cool, because I'm not going to moan say Star Wars is flat, but it's you don't really notice like the hill points, the vantage points, the action. It felt a bit more. I don't want to say real because it looked different. It didn't look as nice as the other ones. I'm not going to moan. It's because it was Earth, right? It was a real life place, and that's why it didn't look as cool, because it was real. And we're slowly moving into the VR world and Ready Player One.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, we complained about a shiny ship in the desert, in episode 1. It's like, that's too shiny. That's too shiny. And now we get a real desert, and like, this is kind of bland, guys. Can we spice it up a little bit, So.
Like the Padme had like someone just oiling that thing, like wax on, wax off all day just to get that shine.
Get that shine. It's like, that's too bright. That's too bright.
That's why she wanted the slave. It wasn't for taking but I need to clean the shipping. No, speaking of shiny stuff, let's go to something that's not so shiny. We had the return. Like I said, you mentioned the Fennec Shan reveal. We knew she's going to come back in this episode off that moment. the clangers, and we know Boba Fett was that at end of episode 1. The online rumors that it's already filming a Boba Fett series, I don't believe it. I think it's too big not to have been formally announced or formally leaked other than like a month ago.
Yeah.
However, as someone that doesn't like Boba Fett, to hear the Slave One come out of nowhere, not in a scene you expected it, if there was going to be one ship coming out of the atmosphere today, it was going to be Moff Gideon and his crew. And I was like, oh my word.
Or a Jedi. Because I was thinking, right away when they landed the temple, I'm like, oh, well, we're going to see a Jedi. Maybe not Ahsoka, but somebody else. But then to see the Slave One, I'm like, oh, okay.
And I was really, I've always loved Jango Fett, Chris, you know this well.
Yeah.
Always preferred Jango, not Boba, maybe because I was sick. I saw that shinier armor. He actually did stuff in his stuff in the film he was in. Granted, he got beheaded.
Right, yeah.
But I was like, oh my God, Boba Fett's here. And like the first time ever, I was like actually kind of like intrigued to see what he does. And then we got the great little revelation. He's got his cloak. You hear Tamura Morrison, which is, age mechanics aren't fully there, which I think we've discussed in the past. I think Boba Fett is meant to be like in his mid to late 30s. I can live with it because he fell into this beast and we don't have the story of him coming out yet. But I did not expect myself to be gravitated towards a Boba Fett conversation today. And then he just had to throw in that was my Twitter bio for about 2 years. I'm just a simple man making my way in the universe.
I love that. That's that's one of my favorite. That literally is my favorite line in Star Wars from Jango Fett, and that he used that again. I just like it hit home. I'm a Boba Fett fan because I'm OT and I'm old, and I've been playing in the sandbox thinking Boba Fett did survive all these years, but I finally got to see that like in live action. But if we're going to bring in maybe a little EU, is that, Boba Fett's still a clone. And in the EU, he's also aging. His age is accelerated. So he's trying to find the genome to stop his aging because his body's falling. He's like a 50-year-old, but his body's falling apart. And so that's part of the EU legends. And so the fact that he's older could be, again, you weren't stuck in a Sarlacc pit either, so that could age you real quick, So it's I still like that he looks older. He's been roughed up, and again, if he's been on Tatooine too, the sun doesn't do good to your skin. It's as Jar Jar said, it's murder to his skin.
Wow. In Attack of the Clones, I never thought about that, the whole accelerated aging thing, because in the film, in Attack of the Clones, they say an unaltered clone, so I thought, oh, okay, this is just fine, but I guess even cloning anything, whether it's
like anything cloning, you would say doesn't have the same life expectancy as a regular human, right? But the thing with the clones is that's why you see them age, and obviously in Rebels, they're really older than they should be. But like even Boba, even though he's unaltered, I still think they're still kind of playing with that a little bit. And again, I'm using Tatooine Suns, and Sarlacc Pit does not help you. I
was going to say that the Sarlacc Pit will certainly do a number on you if you fall into it. I really hope we get to see him escape that in a flashback.
Right, and I do like the scarred kind of feel looking at that. Yeah, and I also like that they finally ended that. Man, like Jango is a foundling. So the same way that Din is a foundling, you still are a Mando. You're not a blood. We kind of knew that they weren't blood related, right? So I'm glad they kind of meld that kind of gap, So you got, okay, he's a Mandalorian, even though he's a foundling, and because Boba's, there's relationship there. And I really like that little clan kind of, I know it was later in the episode, but they kind of show like, hey, this is my heritage, and Din kind of acknowledges that, and I like that, that they finally kind of bridge a gap, because they kept on saying, he's got Mandalorian armor, but he's not a Mandalorian. That was kind of the EU a little bit, and it was like, okay, well, what's going on here? So
I appreciated they went back and went to that lore as well. Like, not only are we getting past post Return of the Jedi lore, pre Episode 7, we're going back and explaining the past of Jango Fett from Episode 2. I was like, this is awesome. He's a family. Clearly, he didn't follow the creed all that much, because obviously he keeps taking the helmet off all the time. But even just to get that history to very much a secondary character from one of the prequel movies. I thought that was really cool. And Boba Fett, I'm kind of with George on this one. I've never been a massive fan. The look of him is incredible. Like he does have that iconic look. He easily has his place in the Star Wars saga.
I also like it's almost like he looked like a Jedi too, with the cloak and it kind of has that like Jedi vibe coming off of that. So you didn't know, again, playing a little bit, like, did the beacon already work? And the guy, the Jedi here, 1-800 Jedi, here you are. I liked he had that kind of look, but it's very simple because, again, he's coming from Tatooine and that kind of thing. So I like that.
Yeah, he's walked the earth. That line though, that line drop from episode 2 was so close. It was so close. They changed it at the last hurdle. It was I'm just a simple man trying to make my way in the galaxy. I was like, oh, you were so close to perfection with that. I get it. It's the same thing. It's fine. But when Boba showed up, I like his fighting style, actually, just using more or less just like this stick that he has. Me and you, George, we were talking about that. Forget Chirrut from Rogue One now. Like Boba's where it's at now with that stick. Like he's just straight up ripping people's faces off with this thing. But I thought it was cool to see that it wasn't just get the armor on straight away, guns, the torpedo and everything. We did have that other side to Boba where he's been in the desert for like X amount of years. Like he would have had to have retrained and completely relearn like different strategies and everything.
It's very visceral, and I think that's great. It's not fancy. It's just like, let's get the job done, and part of that he learned as a bounty hunter. And we saw in the Clone Wars a little bit, but I still like the visceralness of, and like, okay, in a proper trained warrior, the Tusken Raider staff, the Gifiti stick is like, it's lethal. Not only can he clean Bantha's teeth, but then it could do some damage, So I like that. I really do like that. Again, you made a great point, George. It's like we didn't get to see Boba in action much, and that's been some of the complaint about him. Is like, what, this dude didn't do anything. He walked and then he fell in the pit. What else did he do? But I really like that, with the armor off, he showed that he's a fierce fighter and can hold his own, without any armor. And with the armor, again, the armor does not make the warrior. It's part. And so I think it's almost like he redeemed himself. Like I'm desperately, wanting that armor back, because now it will complete me, in a sense. So
I loved it. I mean, I know Robert Rodriguez directed this episode, which we knew it was coming. We didn't know if it'd be the last one or this one or next week. And that shot, I mean, I didn't talk about great shots in Star Wars. There's so many, but before he begins the fight, you just get that incredible. It's not even a hard shot too, but it's the camera panning down and focusing on the weapon. I was like, okay, this is not going to go well. That's when and that's the thing. It's one that's not that Fett fan. It's it's exactly what you guys have said. It's getting those action scenes without that armor. Everything was a weapon today. Even his knee pads with the guns in. We saw everything from him, and it's moments that I feel bad. I'm not going to sit and say I'm on the Boba Fett hype train, because I really enjoyed him today. They made him now, even if it's a minute and a half. We now got to see what the people have spoken about. We know that Favreau and Filoni have said this at Celebration. They've said it before. They're the 80s kids that had the Boba Fett action figures.
Kind of right. And like I said, I was that kid, right? I was in the sandbox playing Boba Fett and just saying, hey man, this guy survived, and he's got wrist rockets and, all this kind of stuff in a rocket pack that I can't fire, but getting to see that kind of live action, not only with Cobb Vanth, but now with Boba Fett it's pretty fulfilling. I'm not gonna lie, But I gotta take a moment with all the TK damage here. So I am part of the 501st. Yeah. So I am a TK, a New Hope TK, and so seeing all these guys just get whooped, I'm like, oh man, they're giving TKs bad names. When they stormed the ship with the other Mandos, a couple episodes ago with Bo-Katan, I'm like, dude, can these guys do anything? Are they, what's going on?
Right? Yeah. One of my favorite bits actually with the stormtroopers, I guess I think it's a sand trooper. It's the ones with the shoulder guards on.
The squad pulls in.
And he's like, no, you get up that ridge and you take them out, and then he just gets shot like, oh, okay.
And then I love the guy on the E-Web, and he's like just shooting at the rock. I'm like, dude, you gotta move away, bro. You gotta move away. So yeah, no, it was. I love the TK stuff. I just wish they're definitely, they know that they're just cannon fodder. But I'm like, hey man, that's close to my heart. They should be doing a little bit more.
I think that's it. It goes back to, we kind of said it in the one a couple of weeks ago. When you have these trained Mandos going, unfortunately, there's only one result. And
yes,
I think if you have Boba Fett, and to be fair, I'll say this, episode 5 is that scorn we speak of. That's one we both struggled with. And I said well over a year ago, you had Mina went in this and they did nothing with her. And that was probably what that was as disappointing, was that it hyped Mina went up massively being in this show, to have her sit on the rock, snipe someone, do nothing, and die. So I feel that there's, I don't want to say redemption story, but we got her in action. So I was like, okay, now that's why there's a bounty hunter that no one could get towards that killing. And
no, I would say too, like even the gunslinger overall, I didn't like I didn't like it. I didn't like it felt like especially with Dave Filoni's like first live action debut, it almost felt fan filmy, oh, we got R5 in the bar, okay, that's great, it just felt a little, and like you said, like you have a great actor, actress in Ming Young, and like, oh, it's not used properly, but when she jumped backwards and hit the guy with the sniper rifle, you're like,
that was my favorite shot the whole episode.
It's cool, right?
That's cool. Rodriguez right there. Like because we guessed that this was going to be the Rodriguez episode. We knew they didn't announce all the they announced the directors, but they didn't announce which episodes they were going to direct. But we speculated heavily that he was probably going to do this one. And I was like, okay, you got famed director from Dusk Till Dawn, Sin City, and Spy Kids 40, All the Time in the World. But we know one thing that he does good is like gunslinging. So it really makes sense that this is like half hour of nothing but that, pretty much. And he does it well. He does it fantastically.
And it doesn't seem it's not recyclable. It's everything's fresh, and like you even mentioned, like with the camera angle, how it panned down, and all the little nuances that makes the action fresh. I really did enjoy that very much.
Definitely, and I think that's worth bringing. Within these scenes, we had maybe the biggest loss to the show so far. Maybe this is someone that won't come back to life. This is the Razor Crest.
I need to bring up a comment right here from Carl.
Yeah,
I mentioned this earlier. I feel sorry for the people who paid £300 for the Hasbro Razor Crest after this episode. Yeah,
I'm with you. That was a tough. I mean, it was called the tragedy. It's got some meaning, I guess, for the end of the episode. But to me, there's only one tragedy of this, and this is the ship. And it's sad because it's not sad at all. Well, no, that bit is. But when the episode started, I love the name reveal. It's like, how Friends was like one with, and Amanda's like the insert one word here. I was like, I was like, oh my god, what's going to happen today?
Yeah,
and like, we already know that they're in a mountain at this point. It's like something's going to happen to Baby Yoda. I can sense it. They're not expecting ship to get blown up.
Yeah,
and it's not even Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, the thing with the Razor Crest, which is similar to what we get with the Falcon, right, is that, we saw Jawas pretty much strip it dry. We've seen it, put fishnet on, and you're like, this thing is like indestructible. And it's a connection, not only in the armor, but it's a connection to him. It's an extension of him. And so he survives as the Razor Crest survived, and that this thing is like utterly blown up, like not coming back from nothing. It hurts, because it's like that's his baby, but I think it makes it more personal. It's like, that's mine, and now you ruined. And there's like, and honestly, he's building great memories with our good friend Grogu, Baby Yoda. It's like there's something visceral about the Razor Crest is his own personality, similar to the Falcon.
I think it's that core component of the show as well, isn't it? Like, even back to like the original Star Wars, you have your main ensemble of characters and the Falcon.
Yes.
And that is your noble steed. That is your thing that's going to take you into this universe. And I mean, we got the Razor Crest right from episode 1, season 1, and it's been very much, this is going to get us from A to B. And as you said, it's gone through all kinds of things. It's been beat up. It's been scratched like the Falcon. It's gone through all of these endeavors, and it's still remaining strong until today. And it'd be exactly the same thing for me if like the Falcon Falcon got completely obliterated in one of the Star Wars films. It would be,
which they were, that's always been the case, right? It's like, is the Falcon going to make it out Death Star 2? And and it's like, oh, okay. And I was even thinking in Rise of Skywalker, I'm like, if the Falcon gets blown up, I might walk. I don't know, but
one of the many reasons to walk out of that film. I'm sure.
I just think that I love how, again, we see very early that it's not indestructible, but it's still rebuildable, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it just shows, like, first of all, Moff Gideon is probably the most imperial of all Imperials, besides probably the Emperor. I would say General Veers is probably the most other competent one, out of the Imperials, but like he's getting the job done, and it's like he took out the ship and then he took the kid, and you're like, dude, this guy is not messing around. And we even saw that, when they're kind of holed up at the bar. I mean, he brought everybody. He's bringing everybody in. It's like, hey, we'll be here all day. We'll get you out. Don't worry. I really like that about Moff Gideon, is that the Empire is obviously disbanded, but he is making a stand, like, this is mine, and I am taking whatever I can to make it happen and kind of rebuild his little empire in a sense.
And that's what I love. I mean, last week everyone was talking Thrawn, and some of the stuff I've seen online on Twitter is some people think, are there different factions of the Empire? Is one of these leading towards the First Order? Is Thrawn doing his own thing with some Empire people? Is Gideon his own Empire people? And obviously, we'll maybe find out in the next couple of weeks. It could be in a year's time. But we absolutely adore him on this. I mean, I go on about it way too much. We've not seen enough from him to reach the status he is in my head. But this is the guy that's got the Darksaber, and to me, that sold me the entire show. That was the moment where I thought, this character's to be given that by Filoni, that essentially co-created it. Favreau, who voiced the original guy with the Darksaber, that wasn't a feat I saw them just giving away lightly for the series. And we're getting bits of him, and it's slowly building. Last year we were moaning because we didn't get him to episode 7. Because we were expecting those little 30 seconds here, there, everywhere that we get now. But this is what's great about him, because if he did come in every episode, and every episode was, the Mandalorians escaped. Kind of in Rebels, how the first couple of seasons with Callus, before they made him an incredible character with the Thrawn stuff, he was that, I'm the Empire guy that always fails but seems to get to the end of the episode. Right. And it's that you can't have that threatening villain if he's going to be that. He needs to come in, do his job, and go. And I think they've built that up so well now.
It's right. And it's efficiency, right? It's not like he's wasted. That's what I'm saying. He's one of the most efficient, because, again, they don't have a lot of ships, and they're not going to waste a lot of ships, and they're not going to just throw a bunch of things at this. He's being very efficient, and again, who knew that you needed to know 1995 video game stuff to figure this stuff out? And, there's just a lot of cool stuff that they're bringing in to his arsenal that you're like, oh, okay. I would just mention too about like the Imperial Remnant, in a sense, that is talked about in kind of the Aftermath books, is trying to combine these kind of, again, really in EU space, is if you had a Star Destroyer, you're your own thing. Like, you were kind of like a warlord. But here in the Aftermath series, and a little bit, is like trying to bring the people together, but it just doesn't quite work out. Because, again, everyone wants, it's kind of like a Sith thing where it's a vacuum of power, and everyone's trying to, make their own stand. But Moff Gideon's making a fair case. He's got the resources and the time he needs to make things happen. So,
I was going to say, George, I think your love for Moff Gideon, if I'm going to compare it to an internet meme, so it's you walking down the street hand in hand with director Krennic from Rogue One, and you're looking over your shoulder at Moff Gideon. It is that internet meme right now.
I bought the shoes. I've got the Adidas Darksaber shoes, which I plan on wearing very occasionally in the nighttime, so you can see the glow in the Darksaber. That's so bad, but I've said to Chris, my ultimate goal is when they announce the Hasbro Darksaber, which is it's been leaked, that it's going to be announced at one Monday over the next few weeks. that's going to be a big autograph project, the Darksaber signed by them. And I don't know how this has come, because I was hyped a year ago. Maybe it's because I'm back in that Star Wars hype, and I loved Clone Wars at the start of the year. That was great. There was some struggles getting to it, but off the back of 9, which obviously everyone knows didn't have a good time with, it really took the Star Wars out of me. Chris, you know exactly what I was like after that. It was basically you 5 years ago, but different video for that. But it's that old school. And again, like going to the soundtrack, we all spoke before we hit record. The Star Wars soundtracks are so important to not just the franchise, it's everything. And the Gideon theme, you heard it, guys. Tonight we dropped the Gideon intro for the first time. It's recognizable that he's not just got the hype, he's got his own theme, he's got his own job, he's got what he set out to do, he's got the Darksaber. Everything's clicking for him to be, well, we know he's the big bad because he's in season 2. Now, long term, we don't know what the plan is. The Mandalorian's got himself I was going to say Vibranium then. Wrong franchise. Beskars are indestructible.
Yeah. Right.
And it's like now he's picked up his weapon. He's got his little handbrake wall thing to look after, and now he's going to get his baby back and try and find some form of ship, I guess. So Gideon it's going to be an interesting 2 weeks, and I'm jumping to the end. We'll go back to the other stuff, but he's really set himself up in a good position. And again, I thought this would be filler and we'd get a 2-parter to finish it off, but it looks like we're in the almost how Filoni used to do Rebels. You'd have like a 2-episode arc, a 4-episode arc. We had episode 1, the one-off at the start of the season. We had 2 and 3 back-to-back with the Snow Planet and the Fish Lady. Yeah. Then we had, 4 and 5. And now it's like 6, 7, 8. Let's just do this. Let's merge it all together.
Right.
And it's what Chris said earlier. You need to advance that plot. And I think they're doing it in the right way, which was the issue of season 1.
Well, I do like how they're... Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, I was just going to say, just real quick, like in the world building, right? So like, even last week when you're saying, I was thinking the whole time Ahsoka's looking for more information about Moff Gideon, and then she drops Thrawn, and you're just like, oh, this is a little bit bigger than I thought it was. And I love being surprised. I mean, we were, that's the beauty thing about season 1 with Mandalorian. I literally thought it's just going to be a gunslinger in space. We get the Western tropes and we see him, do bounties. Great. But you get this weird thing right away where it's like, oh, it's a baby. And you're like, okay, this is like not what I expected. And then when he makes that turn in chapter 3, you're just like, this is totally a different avenue than I thought. And then going back here at, with last week, I'm like, she's just going to get information about Moff Gideon. They're going to team up together. Great. And then she mentioned Thrawn. I'm like, okay. This is, I don't care if it's a spin-off show. I'm just glad that they're making it bigger than, like we were talking about earlier, that video game kind of quest here. They're bringing in other things to make this world bigger, which it should. It should be much bigger than it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just like the core of it with like Gideon as well, what I was going to say is that in season 1, one of my biggest concerns, I think probably one of my criticisms from season 1 is that there wasn't any sort of strong antagonistic role in that series. As an overall, we had Werner Herzog, who was great and really interesting, and then unfortunately kind of unceremoniously killed before we got to know his character a whole bunch by the end of that thing. And then we got Gideon, and I think most of that is down to the actor. Like, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, he's fantastic. He's good at playing a bad guy. He's good at what he does. But in terms of his actual character from season 1, we didn't get to see much of him in action. And then obviously we get that tease at the end of season 1. So one of my concerns going into season 2 was, can they play him up? Can they make him a threat? Can they make him more of that villainous role that I know he can be and I want to see him be? And I think that, and George, we were having this discussion, at the beginning of season 2 where we weren't getting all that much of him. And I thought we're getting towards the halfway point of season 2 and we still haven't had much of a presence from him, but they've peppered him in and they've built him up so well. They started with a hologram, and that's all you needed from one episode. And then we get a little bit more of him. Yeah. Now we get like the full reveal where he's like holding the Darksaber up to Baby Yoda's face. And I'm like, we're getting so close to that final showdown. Or maybe not. Maybe the final showdown is going to be in season's time. But I like the progression. I like how they've built him up slowly, because they could have opened with him like straight away in episode 1 of season 2. But I think that it's good to have that sort of like that slow build, because you're going to get that incredible payoff, I think, by the end of this thing with him.
Yeah.
And I think what's really important, jumping onto the ending, they got Baby Yoda. He achieved his goal, Episode 1, the pilot, we want you to get this baby. We're essentially, and they finally got him. We now know in the Mandalorian's perspective, they need his blood. They're working on some projects.
Yeah.
We discussed that to death. I think we all know where it's heading. Remnant, the First Order theme starting to be played, as Sean pointed out when it came on last week, which is noticeable again today. And getting and we'll discuss, we've got a comment from Carl who's mentioned which Jedi do we think he's speaking to. This is what I love today. We had them at the temple. We had him reach out in the Force. And not that we didn't get a response. By the time Yoda's woken up, he's essentially already moved on. The shield's down, the Dark Troopers are in, and they've gone up to space, and they took him. So that's, to me, left a far more interesting dynamic leading the series forwards than I think we had previously, because it's not we're going to get to the mountain episode 8. The last shot's going to be the Jedi that says hi. Baby Yoda's already spoken to the Jedi. We don't know who. I think there's a lot of discussion online, a lot of fan edits of certain actors as a certain Skywalker. There's so much potential, but this has completely changed where I thought this season's heading, because ultimately the goal is to now get Baby Yoda and find out who was speaking to him, or if there is also a Jedi that's going to be trying to get to him. So there's so much intrigue and speculation. A lot of people, I'm going to check my name into the hat. I think it's going. I'm fully sold on the Ezra idea now. I don't think it will be, but
really,
I think of the ones logistically, I really can't see it being Luke. As much as I'd love it to be, I also don't want it to be. And people say Cal Kestis. Well, they're doing a sequel to Fallen Order. I'm sorry, he ain't surviving Darth Vader for sort of 10 plus years or however long he's got left. So I think it's going to be Ezra. If not, I think they could have a massive surprise and it maybe be someone that we haven't seen.
Yeah, the two dark horses I think are Quinlan Voss, which is one that I would be a surprise. Again, not many people know him, but at the same time, it could be something. He could be still around, and then they could bring back an EU character, which is Kyle Katarn, from the Dark Forces, kind of, and that's my only speculation, because they already brought that in, and he did go to the Valley of Jedi and all this kind of stuff that he did in the video games, and they could bring some of that back. I would be interested in that. I mean, as much as I would like, I'm kind of with you, George, is like, as far as like Luke Skywalker, it'd be cool to see a DH Luke, but I don't know. In Cal Kestis, like you said, it is a good. He could be around. We know the actors around, but I almost want somebody that we wouldn't expect, but still in. Don't create a Jedi for me. Create somebody that we know that we weren't expecting, and I think that's especially like with like Cal Kestis, it's like, oh, we created a Jedi, even though that story is like fantastic. I love it. You almost have to get away from let's create a new Jedi and maybe bring somebody in that we're not familiar with, but it's still in that Star Wars universe.
I think, like, story-wise, I mean, this takes place 5 years after Return of the Jedi, and we saw how Return of the Jedi falls out. Story-wise, it would make more sense for me, at least, for it to be Luke Skywalker. Just at that stage, he's harnessing his powers, he's refining them, he's rebuilding the Jedi Order and everything like that. So I think that it would make sense that it kind of pings to him. Is it like a sort of like message notification popping up, like through the Force, like, oh, I need to go over that way? Carl's, I think this is referring to Ezra. He says, the only thing that I'm unsure about is he actually a Jedi? A lot of time's passed since Rebel, as far as I'm aware. As I said, like, I haven't watched all of Rebel, so I don't know much about Ezra's character, but there's a big chunk of time that they can mine. There's more information we can learn about that character. So
yeah, I would say Filoni kind of hinted at it that, Star Wars is not linear, and we jump around a little bit. So everyone is referring to that kind of end scene when Ahsoka shows up. That could be a long time after what we're seeing in Mandalorian. So Ezra might still be out in the unknown regions. You never know. So it's hard to say. It's really hard to say. I mean, Ezra would be a cool kind of character to bring live action. They've done obviously a great job with Ahsoka turning, from cartoon to live action. But I want to be surprised, and the show is surprising me. So let me just be. I do want to see a Jedi show up next week. So
I'm going to throw a name out there. What about Mace Windu?
Oh, I saw a Photoshop. Please no.
I don't want it to happen. I'm just saying that's another name that you can throw out there. But
I've seen this incredible Photoshop of like Sam Jackson today in Jedi uniform with a bit of a grey beard and
one arm.
You know, Mace Windu could finally got a young Yoda.
Hands. Yeah, he needs 2 hands.
So there's the part of me one day would just love to see a Mace Windu, but it would just open up a horrible can of. We know people that die don't ever stay dead in fiction, and there's got to be at least some drawing ground for some of them, and I think he is one. But the Ezra stuff, I think the reason that Ezra stuff's floating around more is because we got the Thrawn drop last week, because Thrawn was name dropped and Thrawn was on that ship with Ezra. In theory, if one is alive, either the other is, or the other knows where the other is. So I'm really intrigued to.
Oh, this happens every time. We lose George for a few seconds. He'll be back in a second. Oh, there we go.
There we go. Sorry, it always happens. Just doing my final shot.
George, you're in the Matrix for just a second. You're just like in between. He's in between.
It always happens. It's always on the night shows. It always happens for like 5 seconds. I don't know why, but
it's okay.
I think the final shot is going to be a Jedi. I've said this to Chris. If it would be Luke, it would be that like the Last Jedi close up of the eyes. It won't be Luke, but I could imagine the reveal of the Jedi being the final shot of the season, because I think season 3 is going to be them going to this specific Jedi, or the next 2 episodes are going to be crazy, and we're going to get some Mandalore stuff, which I think is going to be too late now to cram in. I think maybe there's a bigger story down the line they're working towards.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I really thought this it would end with them on the temple and we see the Jedi. Now I'm obviously I have to refine that. So I think it is the last shot would be fantastic if it looked like this raiding party is at its last, it's not looking good, and we could even see some casualties that we weren't expecting. And the Jedi shows up to save the day, and that's the end. I think that would send everybody into hyperspace. I think that would be a really cool way to kind of end the show, But I want to talk real quick about Moff Gideon and the baby. Holy cow. Little Grogu, we love him. He's so cute, and he's definitely desperate and doing crazy stuff to stormtroopers again. What did you guys think of this scene?
I was horrified at the noise that Baby Yoda. I'm still calling him Baby Yoda. Horrified at the little sound that Baby Yoda made when the Dark Troopers got him and started flying away, and he was like this desperate cry. I was like, my paternal instinct always kicks in whenever Baby Yoda's in peril. It just happens. But I'm actually kind of with the Life of Brian here. Dave in the comments, he says, loved Moff enjoying Grogu throwing stormtroopers around. That poor last ditch effort that Grogu was trying to keep them at bay, and you could see he was kind of sinking. He was getting weaker and weaker. It was the perfect ending for me, because you do anything bad to Baby Yoda. Do you remember when fans just lost their shit in season 1 when that stormtrooper kept punching Baby Yoda on the head 3 times? That was then. This is a whole different ball game right now. The enemy's won. George, you said it perfectly. This is the Empire Strikes Back ending of all the episodes that we've had so far. The enemy's won at the end of this.
Yeah. Well, and the malice you use is have you seen this before? Almost. It's a respect thing that he has respect for that weapon, but a malice thing, I can destroy you with this, and that, we, like you said, Chris, it's that paternal instinct. You're hey, don't be touching the kid, man. But he doesn't care. And that's an imperial thing, that's I'm using all my resources to get what I want, watching Mandalorian with the kids, when in season 1, when they take Baby in chapter 3, when he takes Baby Yoda back, in the back room, and you see kind of Baby Yoda look, or Grogu, I gotta say Baby Yoda 1,000 times. When he kind of looks and you're oh, he's just going to leave him? My kids cried. They just start bawling because it's an innocent thing, right? And it's our job. It should be our job as adults and everybody to protect kids, right? And he's just kind of giving them up, and you're just the kids just did not like that part, and it was like, isn't he gonna go back, and so that's when you get the fist pump when he's like, he puts the silver knob on, and you're like, okay, he's going back to get the kid. And so here Gideon's just like, I don't care about you, we're gonna suck your blood, and if you die, okay, whatever. I really kind of like that about him, but I also like that, like, again, Mando looked for the silver knob as a connection piece, to the kid, and
like, I'm just gonna get him back. Like,
it's gonna be like the ending of X-Men First Class. Like, instead of the coin going through Kevin Bacon, it's gonna be Baby Yoda in this tiny little circle, like control panel through Moff Gideon, and he's going to hand it back to Mando covered in blood. And I've gone.
That's dark. I love it.
You could see that he's showing you not that Kylo Ren quote, but show me the dark side, and he's going for it. We saw him, predicting Gina Carano's Twitter fates a year ago when he forced her to an episode, and today he's just going for the stormtroopers. So he's in a situation, as Dave's put, I love that Moff already has Grogu sized cuffs. That's what did it for me. It's like, you took the baby, you've put him in prison, but you've got like it reminds me of Zoolander. It's like a center for ants. It's like you've got handcuffs for like Yodas.
It's like, like Gideon's using all the tools at his disposal. I was like, yeah, including the Grogu-sized cuffs that he's got tucked away too. Like,
like, hey, can you whip me up some of those guys? We need those, Do
you think they're comparing it to like the Wookiee ones they had from A New Hope? Like, right, that's a Wookiee, and we got a baby like this.
Right.
There's like photos on the walls of which species are going to fit what, and it's like a little fight. So that's wrapping up most of things for me. One thing I'll actually speak about next week. So we know that they're going to be essentially doing a heist. They're going to get Bill Burr out of prison. This isn't real life. This is in Mando world. They even named his character, and I've already forgotten, because Chris, this. I've not known much of Bill Burr, except everyone's like, oh my god, Bill Burr's in Mando's like, who's Bill Burr? That's Bill Burr. So he's just Bill Burr. So Rick Famuyiwa's directing next week, which we knew, of course. He directed the Jawa episode 2. He also directed episode 6. So I guess there's a bit of familiar territory if he's going back to one of the characters he directed with. And it's kind of reminding me of last season. We're going to get a prison heist, maybe not on a ship. They mentioned some kind of field. So if it's going to be like sort of Red Dead Redemption, but Mando's going to have Boba Fett and Fennec Shand to break him out of prison. I'm assuming with Gina Carano and Apollo Creed. Yeah. That is quite the Suicide Squad. Let's go for that again. That's Gina Carano, ex sort of MMA. Yeah. That's Apollo Creed, the two-time boxing world champion. That is also the Mandalorian. That is Boba Fett, slightly older out of retirement.
Tusken Raider Boba Fett using a graffiti stick. Yeah,
you got Cyborg Ming Na Wen. Don't forget.
Yeah, Fennec Shand back from the dead. That's like the Suicide Squad, like times 10 in Star Wars and on TV. But I'm cautiously excited. I think because it's a middle chapter of a 3-parter, I actually think it might be quicker than we think. And if they're going to bring Bo-Katan into it, if they're going to say, hey, I found out where Moff Gideon is, then potentially we've got the portal scene from Endgame happening in 2 weeks too. So it's all fun and games, but I'm actually looking forward to the return of Bill Burr, surprisingly. I would not have believed that 5 weeks ago, believe me.
Yeah.
But, it's in a good place.
It's interesting, like I said, that they're bringing, they're creating that world. And you're like, and I also think too, like we might see Dave Filoni and the other gentleman, the 2 New Republic pilots, they might come back. It's like they're everything's done on purpose because, well, they thought of all it out, and so we're going to see a lot of threads that they place are coming to fruition. And I really do enjoy that. So yeah, it's like you said, you might get like kind of an end game next week, and then the season finale. It might be something else, So I don't know. It should be interesting.
I don't know. I didn't like episode 6 from season 1. I'm just going to say episode 5 and 6. I didn't like. I know that people tend to be more critical of episode 5 for good reason. It's Mandalorian's episode, but I think 6 is quite divided. I know that some people love the smaller scale of it with the cast of characters. Now, Bill Burr, like I love some of his stand-up. His podcast is great as well. but it's just distracting every time he's on screen to me. It feels like I'm watching, we always talk about this, an SNL Star Wars special. It's like, which guest, can we get in today? Oh, we got Bill Burr in today.
Yeah.
Also, the guy mentioned Canto Bight in his episode, which I will never forgive him for, either in episode 6, and he's reminding me of that moment from that movie, but that's a different conversation for another time. It's just distracting to me because I don't see a character. I see Bill Burr, and it kind of takes me out of the immersion of the world a little bit. If it's only minimal and it's like the first scene is this prison break and we've got him out and it's straight on with the rest of the adventure, that's fine. I just don't want a whole episode dedicated to this one prison break again on that same one set that they had from episode 6 in season 1. Other things I want to see come back. I really want to see the Dark Troopers come back. So we get like a little bit of them in this episode. Really imposing, awesome design to them. I thought they were actually going to be sort of like mech suits, like thinking of like Alien or like Batman v Superman, if I'm going to compare to that awful film. But the Batman suit that he wears in that amplifies the strength. I thought regular average Joes were going to wear the Dark Troopers costumes, but these are like full on Terminators. These are like robots designed for one purpose and one purpose only.
Right.
And because, the Stormtroopers, they do kind of fall by the wayside, which I guess is Star Wars tradition, it would be nice to have sort of an opposing physical force for people to go up against. So I'd like to see more of them, hopefully in the finale. And I don't want to see Bill Burr and the entire rest of the jail crew just take all the Dark Troopers out one by one really easily. I think that would do a disjustice to the character.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like what George was saying as well is that kind of end game where we might get some casualties after next, like people that we know don't make it, because the Dark Troopers are so formidable. Again, I don't know if we're going to get that kind of confrontation right away, but I would love to see, again, because you want to see that loss. You want to see, because the stakes are high. And, again, Moff Gideon doesn't care. You just want
it's got the Darksaber. Use it, please.
Well, in terms of casualties, I know that George, you're batting for Gina Carano next episode, right?
Well, I've said now they've set up this new Republic. She's redeemed herself. They've teased this. To me, there's only one sign that she's on the way out. Not to bring the social media stuff into it again. I don't think you can get away with that, as in not doing it. But I think she'd already filmed her final scene to then act like that on social media. Because she didn't a year ago, she didn't a year and a half ago. There's got to be a correlation there, and I don't think it's lockdown. So that's the kind of off-record thing. But I think Gideon's going to use that Darksaber, and I think since her outburst, especially bringing Pedro into it, I don't think she's in season 3 before this stuff kicked off. And
right. Yeah, I was going to say, like she already filmed right when all this kind of political stuff came out.
And like
maybe that's why Lucasfilm is not even touching it or whatever and not acknowledging it. So,
and I think if you're Moff Gideon, if you're going to make a statement and have killed someone, you've got to go to the who survived season 1, Apollo Creed, and those two are the obvious two of anyone because they've had that long. Killed Bo-Katan to Mandalorian. I know it 2 minutes, but I know everyone at home saw her 10 years ago. It's got to be those ones personal to him, and I think Apollo Creed or Gina Carano are the two that are most likely. That's like my if there's going to be a Darksaber, because he's not just going to have it and not use it for 2 seasons. He's going to kill someone. He will have a duel with Mando, probably against his new shiny spear. But I'm sensing there's going to be a fatality or 2. So
yes, I think the tell will be to see which character gets the most screen time next episode, because I don't think either I'm going to call him Apollo Creed. I don't think Apollo Creed or exactly, or Gina Carano have had enough screen time this season to feel that death. I know they were prominent in season 1, but season 1 was a long time ago. I think whoever they spend the most time with next episode, it's going to be developing their character, making you feel empathy for that character, and then last episode is where they get rid of that character. So if Apollo Creed gets a lot of screen time next episode, I think it's going to happen. If Gina Carano gets it, I think we know one way that it's going. But
my final thing, they did it to IG-11. They did it to, I always forget his name, Quilly. I can't pronounce it. Quill, and those two had backstory. They had great scenes. They had multiple episodes. I think Chris, you're onto something there. But sort of wrapping up, that's where I'm at. Overall, I think this was, to me, one of the best episodes of The Mandalorian. We're saying this every week now. The show is getting very consistent. I think consistency is key It's such an obvious saying, but it's really building up, and it feels each episode's feeling different from the last. Last season was very repetitive at times, but last week was the Ahsoka one. This is the Boba Fett one. The one before was the Mandalorian one, the Frog Lady one, and the Crate Dragon one. And there's so many different things happening. I think overall I had a lot of fun with this, and they've again progressed that plot to have you thinking, a week until the next one. So overall, absolutely loved it.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, the other thing that I would just close too is, like, I love that all the trailer stuff we saw was all in the first 4, and everything that we're seeing now in the back 4 is all brand new, and that is fantastic to me. And so surprised me. Like, I'm just so happy of getting surprises. Like you even said earlier, George, like, I was not expecting Slave 1, and when you see it, you're like, I like this, So I'm really happy with surprises. So just continue to do that, and even if it's small, these small little things have been really fantastic from a fan, and I'm just like eating it all up. I love it. It's so good.
Absolutely, and not just for the rest of this season, but probably season 3 as well. It's setting all the groundwork for what's to come, and we're loving it. So bring on next Friday. It's always that week-long wait. It just absolutely kills me every single week. But I think we've pretty much said everything that we can on Chapter 14, The Tragedy. So now we want to hear from you guys. Be sure to comment, like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. We love having a conversation with you guys. We want to get as many people involved in these reviews as we can week to week. This has been a blast talking about this tonight. But before we sign off, Todd, if you just want to go over your channel and what you talk about and everything, and then we'll sign off.
Yeah, sure. So once again, one podcast isn't enough. I have 2. So first one is WSTR Galactic Public Access, and the pitch there is the NPR for Star Wars. So turn it on at Coruscant Radio, and you get a little NPR with WSTR. And so one of the cool things is that we are coming up to our 200th episode. So it's been fun. We started right around Rogue One, and we're just having a blast talking about Star Wars. You can find us on the socials at WSTR Media, and you can check us out there. I also have another podcast I'm doing with my son, Trent, and that's called Big T, Little T, a Star Wars podcast. So we started that with Mandalorian season 1. I thought it would be a good opportunity. He's 7, and we just talk about Star Wars. And so we did season 1, and then we went to Resistance, because we never saw that when we used Disney Plus. So went through season 1, and now we're back on season 2 with Mandalorian, and we're having fun doing that. So you can find that a Big T, Little T on all the socials and podcasts, wherever you find that. So guys, it's been a pleasure talking to somebody across the pond. I really appreciate it. It's been so much fun talking Mando with you guys.
Yeah, man, you've got a new fan as well. Like, we've got Carl Roberts in the comments. He says, great guest tonight. Todd, it'd be great to have you back on again at some point if we can arrange the schedules again. This has been a blast tonight. Yes. But yeah, if you'd like to follow our stuff, so Cinema Savvy, if you're new watching this, so Cinema Savvy, you can find us at Facebook at Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy, and if you'd like to pick up any merch, we have some t-shirts available at TeePublic. The link is in the description down below. We've got 3 designs there now. We will be back before Mandalorian next week. We have a bunch of videos coming out this weekend, including a review for Mank, which is now on Netflix. That's definitely going to be a big Oscar contender next week. And Small Axe, right. George, you type the schedule, man. You know the whole thing. We've got so much stuff coming out, haven't we?
Yeah, we've got the John Boyega episode of Small Axe, keeping it Stars related, Red, White, and Blue. Looking forward to watching that, reviewing it. In America, it's on Amazon Prime. UK, it's on BBC on iPlayer. So we're going to check that out, get that tomorrow night, we think. But yes, our Rocky series continues. Me and Chris have reached Rocky Balboa coming this Tuesday. Yeah, next Tuesday, same thing.
Emotional.
So, yeah, Rocky Balboa. We've reached episode 6. There's 2 more to come after, and of course, next week we've got Mandalorian. We've got a lot of things coming in December. So, as we always said, the best way to find out what we're doing is getting us on those social medias. We do announce videos. We even did a Christmas Carol, the news interpretation review yesterday, which is up on the channel. Check that one out for us. Chris was in the review with him. So we've got things coming up. We don't know when they're coming. Something's going to pop up, but December is stacked. But if you guys like Star Wars, if you like the Mandalorian, we've got 2 more weeks, 2 more Fridays of catching it at the same time every Friday. And we're in for one hell of a showdown. That's all I'm going to say.
Absolutely.
As usual, thanks everyone for watching, and we shall see you at the